Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Classic Comics. There's a lot riding on James Gunn's new Superman movie. It's supposed to launch a whole new DC universe, not to mention that Warner Brothers is in bad shape financially, and after the string of flops that brought it into the DCEU, the studio is in desperate need of a hit. It also doesn't help that there's a lot of controversy around the film. There's the Snyder Bros who are determined to undermine the film. There's the change in the costume that a lot of people don't like. There's a story about how the movie will have monkeys serving as a troll farm to turn the public against Superman. And in the last couple of weeks, Gunn and others connected with the film have played up the notion that the film is actually a pro immigration story, sparking fears that the film will be woke. So, what's the verdict? Is it good, bad, or woke, or what? This review will have spoilers, but I'll warn you when I get into the spoilers later. Now, overall, I'll say this up front. I enjoyed this movie. I had a good time watching it, and overall, I liked the film. But the film does have issues, and I recognize that this movie isn't going to be for everyone. I will also say that I think it works better as a comic book movie than it does as a Superman movie, if you understand what I'm saying. Now, I'll start with David Corenswet as Superman. I think he does a fine job of portraying both Clark and Superman. One thing that some people may not like is showing Clark and Superman as being a little more loose and a little goofy, honestly, at times. Personally, I didn't have a problem with that. This isn't the Christopher Reeve Superman. This isn't the classic Silver and Bronze Age Superman. This is closer to the John Byrne version of Superman. He seems a little less powerful, and as a result, he struggles a little bit more. Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor is fine. I still think they could have chosen a more appropriate actor, but Holt is a good actor and I have no real issue with his performance. Rachel Brosnahan is good as Lois. She projects the intelligence and determination that the role calls for, although I don't think that the on screen chemistry between the two is really particularly great. The rest of the cast is fine for the most part. There were no performances I hated, although I didn't really love the portrayal of Metamorpho in the movie. He just didn't feel like the comic version. The comic book version has a personality more along the lines of the Thing, and this version didn't really have that. This movie definitely has plenty of action, but the plot is all over the place, and as I feared, there's so much going on that Superman gets a bit lost in the midst of it all. As a result, while the movie is fast paced and entertaining, it's also kind of shallow. This is clearly just popcorn entertainment, but it works very well in that sense. The cinematography is not impressive. The movie actually looks kind of cheap in some scenes. It looks more like a CW show at times rather than a big budget film. And while it's entertaining, I don't think there's any part that is particularly memorable either. The movie's editing is also pretty choppy. Scenes seem to jump from day to night and then back to day again pretty suddenly, and some scenes seem to end pretty abruptly. Another thing that isn't very memorable is the soundtrack. They use the John Williams music a couple of times, but for the most part, I can't really remember any part of the soundtrack that isn't using the John Williams version. Also, James Gunn and others have played up that this is about immigration and that, oh, MAGA's gonna hate this movie and that sort of thing. If there's an immigration angle in this movie, I didn't see it. I think there may have been one line where Superman mentions how he's an alien or something, but this seems like some kind of manufactured controversy, probably because they think that that will help sell the movie. As far as the movie being woke, I mean, not really. And there are a couple of bits here and there that you could argue are woke, but they're so brief that you could just blink and you would miss them. In fact, for the most part, I would say that this is one of the least woke movies I've seen from Hollywood in the last couple of years. Now, I'm going to get into spoilers for this movie, so if you don't want to be spoiled, you may want to go see the movie first. All right? So, spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Okay, as I said previously, this movie has issues, and I'm going to get into them, but first I want to summarize the plot right quick. The movie begins with Superman crashing in Antarctica. The first 10 minutes or so of the film is basically what we saw in the trailers. He's injured from a battle, and then Crypto takes him to the Fortress of Solitude. The robots expose him to sunlight to heal him. After that, he flies back to Metropolis and fights this character called the Hammer of Baravia. Now, we learned that a nation called Baravia was about to attack a neighboring country called Jarhanpur. Superman intervened and prevented the invasion, but now this Hammer of Baravia character has come to Metropolis and attacked Superman and beat the crap out of him. So Superman returns to Metropolis and they fight again, and you learn that Lex Luthor is behind the attack by the Hammer of Baravia and is guiding the Hammer's attack on Superman. Luthor has like some kind of AI program, I guess, that has learned Superman's fight moves. So basically, when he's fighting the Hammer of Baravia, the bad guy is always a step ahead of him, and he beats Superman again. Then the Hammer of Baravia leaves, but then we learn that the Hammer of Baravia is really this Ultraman character, the guy we've seen in the trailers that is dressed completely in a black costume. After the battle, we see news reports about how the Baravian government is decrying Superman's interference, and the US government is upset because Baravia is a strategic ally. We eventually learn that Luthor and the president of Baravia are basically planning to invade the country and then split it between them, with Luthor taking half of the country for himself. So basically, this is all another land scheme. It's another land grab by Luthor again. Now, Lois and Clark have been dating for about 3 months when the movie begins. So she knows he's Superman and she questions his actions in Baravia. Then we get that scene where Lois interviews Clark. I don't love this scene. He gets too upset under questioning by Lois. Pretty mild questioning, really. But when you see the scene in context, I don't think it's as bad as it comes across in the trailer. Before I go any further, let me take a moment to mention that most of the viewers on my channel are not subscribed. So while you're here, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. That sort of engagement really helps with the YouTube algorithm and gets the channel out to more viewers. Thank you. Then Luthor goes to the Fortress of Solitude. He has a superhuman agent called the Engineer who tracks Superman to it so they know where it is. They're able to gain entry into the fortress, and how they do that is a mystery that gets dealt with later in the movie, because the door is keyed to Superman's DNA and should only open for him. So Ultraman and the Engineer defeat the robots that are in the fortress, and then the Engineer hacks into Superman's computer. Now, they've established at the beginning of the movie that Jor-el and Lara included a recorded message for their son. The message is in Kryptonian, and it's damaged so that only the beginning of it is understandable. To keep Superman distracted while they're doing this, Luthor releases a kaiju into Metropolis, and Superman has to fight it. During this battle, the Justice Gang shows up, which is Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific, and they kill the creature, which Superman takes exception to because he wanted to kind of capture it alive, but they dismiss his complaints. Now, after the battle, a new report begins to circulate in which Luthor presents the message from Jor-El and Lara to the world and claims that linguistic experts have examined the rest of the message, which the Engineer was able to retrieve, and in it they tell Kal-El that they send him to Earth to conquer and eventually rule Earth. Now, this is a big change, obviously, and I'm sure that a lot of people are not going to like it. It seems like James Gunn watched Invincible and he got the idea from there, because they basically want Kal-El to conquer Earth and breed more Kryptonians. So they come across being kind of like Viltrumites. Of course, this turns the public against Superman, and the government begins to view him as a threat. The Justice Gang demands an explanation, and then Superman realizes that Luthor could only get the message from the fortress. So he flies there and finds the place trashed, the robots destroyed, and that Krypto is missing. He confronts Luthor, who denies knowing anything about Krypto's whereabouts. Later, he talks to Lois and tells her he's going to turn himself into the government since they've called for his arrest. He surrenders to the government, but then they turn him over to Luthor, who's working with the government, and he has created a pocket universe, another dimension, basically, where he's established a prison for metahumans inside it. One of the prisoners is Metamorpho, and he's basically being extorted into helping Luthor because Luthor is holding his son hostage, his infant son. Now, one of the issues I have with the movie is how Metamorpho is portrayed. His personality really isn't in line with his comic book version, and his powers in the comics are to change into different elements. But in the movie, they claim that he can turn into any substance you can think of, which isn't really how his powers work, at least not in the comics. Now, he changes into kryptonite to weaken Superman and prevent him from escaping. Meanwhile, Lois goes to the Justice Gang and tries to get them to help free Superman. Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl refuse, but Mr. Terrific agrees to help. He tracks Superman to a portal that leads to the Pocket Universe and sends his little T-Sphere drones in to find Superman. Meanwhile, Superman convinces Metamorpho to help him escape. They do, and then Superman frees Metamorpho's child and Krypto. By the way, I'm going to say that the CGI effects in the movie overall are fine, but the CGI on Metamorpho's child is not good. The kid is just obviously fake. It just looks bad. Now, eventually, they escape from the Pocket Universe, and Lois takes Superman back to Kansas to recover. Then there's a nice scene between Clark and Pa Kent, where Clark questions who and what he is after the revelation of the message from his Kryptonian parents, but Pa Kent tells him that it's his actions that define his character, not his heritage, and that no matter what, he is proud of Clark. It's a nice scene, and I kind of got choked up by it, actually, I have to admit. Luthor is furious because Superman escaped, and so he causes a rift to form in the ground outside of Metropolis, where this pocket universe is sort of breaking into our universe. And it starts to spread towards the city, splitting the earth open, and even eventually splitting the city, even including buildings into as well. Buildings start to crumble and collapse as the city is evacuated. As this is happening, Baravia also invades Jahanpur. Now, Clark sees this on the news and he decides to intervene, but then Mr. Terrific contacts him and tells him about the rift tearing Metropolis apart. So he changes course and heads there, and later we see that the Justice Gang has stopped the Baravian invasion. In Metropolis, Miss Tessmacher, who is Lex Luthor's assistant, and she's got this kind of romantic subplot going with Jimmy Olsen. She offers to provide dirt on Luthor after Luthor mistreats her. She sends the info to Jimmy, and he and Lois are able to uncover the whole plot by Luthor and the Baravian government to occupy and divide Jarhanpur, as well as his plot to use troll farms on the internet to turn the public against Superman. They later release the story, and this turns public opinion against Luthor and the invasion. Meanwhile, Superman and Mr. Terrific stop the rift and they close it. Then the Engineer and Ultraman attack Superman, and there's a big fight, and Ultraman is exposed as being a clone of Superman, but not before their fight takes them into Luthor's pocket universe, and Superman causes Ultraman to fall into a black hole. Then there's a quick scene where Superman and Lois are reunited, and we learn that the public is back on Superman's side. And then there's a closing scene in the Fortress of Solitude with Superman, and then Supergirl shows up. And she's only on screen for like 2 minutes, or not even 2 minutes, maybe 1 minute. She has like two lines, and then she leaves. Now, again, the movie isn't perfect, but I enjoyed it. I would say I like it in the same way that I like the Aquaman movies, in that it is a comic book movie that fully embraces being a comic book movie, including some of the silly and ridiculous elements. There's a lot of action, but the plot is so scattered that Superman gets a bit lost in everything that's happening. There's also a post-credit scene, but it's not important. It doesn't reveal anything special, so believe me, you can feel free to skip it and not wait through the credits. So I'll give Superman 3.5 stars out of 5. Let me know what you thought of Superman and this review in the comments. Please do give a like and check out some of my other videos before you leave, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching.